Hey everyone, welcome to the Slice of Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today, we have Lanita Layton. Lanita, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks, Jared. How are you doing?
I'm pumped to have you on. I'm so excited. It's I did actually I went through like past articles and anything I could find. I didn't find anything bad, so you're doing something right, okay? Because I tried to dig pretty deep and before this interview. So kudos to you on that. And yeah, I'm excited. Let's just dive right into the conversation. Let's start off. If you could just tell the audience a little bit about your background for those that maybe haven't heard of you. Although I find it anyone in the industry that hasn't heard of you, where have you been? Because anyone that knows this space will know about you. But let's assume there's people that don't. What do you tell them?
Thanks very much, Jared. Appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to the call today. For me, I've been in the industry for many years, as you've alluded to, but it's really been starting off as a merchant, ladies wear, children's wear, men's wear, home and epicure, fine jewelry, accessories, you name it. And really found my focus in passion, really in the luxury world with that. Vice President of Menswear and Home and Epicure for Holt Renfrew, which is Canada's luxury department store. I was there for 10 years. After that, really wanted to sink my teeth into the full P&L and operational row, and had the wonderful opportunity to become the managing director for HUGO BOSS for Canada. So running everything for that with an amazing team. And then after that, wanted to again find out more about a different piece of the luxury. I hadn't touched on fine jewelry and timepieces as much, and went to Berks at that time, which is Canada's luxury fine jewelry and timepiece retailer, and that gave me an interesting look into that world and another aspect of luxury overall for me. And since then, I've been doing consulting for quite a few companies, luxury mostly, and for the most part, European companies, interestingly, a couple from the States, but about focusing on Canada and or North America and what they need to do differently, or how does it work here, reorganizations in some cases, or in some it's expanding into these markets.
As it relates to luxury, you've worked in Canada, you've worked in the U.S. Are there more similarities, or are there still some are there more differences between those two markets that you've seen?
Yes and yes. So it's, sometimes companies make the mistakes of thinking, okay, we're just right across the border. We all speak the same language in some provinces and some states. But that's, just like in the US, where Louisiana is completely different from California, completely different from, New York. It's the same in Canada and the same from Canada to the US. So it's really about regionalization, but understanding we're a bilingual country to official languages, weather different across the entire country. All of these pieces, similar to what the US goes through, really, in some ways, but it's a different country with different laws, different cultures, whole piece. So sometimes it really behooves a company to really dig in and have people here who really understand that difference and can tap in. Those companies have done very well by it overall.
And what I really wanted to make a point of asking you to kind of kick off our conversation here today is, you mentioned HUGO Boss and Berks. You've helped lead major transformations between those two organizations. I would love to hear some of the early challenges in those transformations, and then kind of how did you overcome those challenges?
Oh, thanks. Great brands. And HUGO Boss, I spent 8 years at HUGO Boss. And with that, they really created the role for me. An amazing CEO for the Americas, for the group overall, for the NCSA, as we would call it. And with that, it was coming into an organization where HUGO Boss had been in Canada for many, many years. And in fact, had been much stronger in Canada than it had been in the US. The difference was being able to work directly with Germany beforehand. So they'd been able to tap into that. The big challenge, though, was it was really focused on 90% wholesale. And with that, we now had a new CEO worldwide and the CEO for the Americas and myself, who were looking at this as we need to, like many companies, we need to focus on retail expansion, on enhancing and protecting the brand, on also enhancing and protecting the profitability with that, and really looking at a full omnichannel experience. So came into an organization, long tenured employees for the most part, wholesale for the most part, and they're looking at us going, "What? Oh my God, you're going to change everything, and I'm going to lose my job," and all of those pieces. It was all change management. So it was really about helping everyone through a lot of communication, full transparency, quarterly conferences, you name it, to help everybody in the organization understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, what is their part in that, because they all played a part, and how this is going to make success for everybody in the end. And with that, we were able to move people around in different roles. I'd identified, this one's in wholesale, but really has this great background that can be utilized in the retail division. So then it's about bringing in new people and long tenured. How do you build them into a team together and really focus on building a brand and maintaining the success, but increasing the success and profitability and brand image again with the brand, particularly since CEO was very focused on retail and now becoming more of a luxury brand as well, or getting back to being a luxury brand, let's say.
When it comes to luxury, how important is it to only pull, like when you're hiring, for people that come from that space? Like, is it a rarity for you to take someone that didn't come from the luxury world and try to convert them in and teach them how the game is played, or are you more likely to always pull from someone that has that? I'm speaking because, like, any of my friends that are in the luxury space, they never leave it, right? Like they'll go to another company or they'll do something else, but they're always in the luxury space. How common is it to, once you're in, it's like it's like the mafia, right? Once you're in, you're in. There is no leaving. Is that the same way with luxury?
That's a great question, and I've been asked that by students actually several times as well, because they're all trying to figure out, if I go to this kind of business, does that mean I'll never get into luxury? But no, there is an opportunity. I like to look, there's transferable skills in anything we do. It's really about the style, and I don't use that first usually, but it's about the style of the person, the understanding of the person about what they need to know about luxury in the market, about having a passion for that kind of product and for that client, and or for that hoping to be client, let's say, as well, because aspirational is just as important. It's really finding those people, and that's absolutely out there. I've found many, and sometimes it's harder to talk other people into, no, this is really who you want, because they've got all of that innate background. It's just helping them with training, etc., to get to that next level. Coaching, training will do it, but you can absolutely. Once you're into luxury, though, it's really hard to step out of luxury.
Yeah, I can imagine. Everything changes, right? Like so okay, to rehash that, it's more likely if you didn't come from luxury to break into luxury than someone who came from luxury to go into something else. Yeah.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And it's easier. I mean, in buying, it's a little different, which I was a buyer for many, many years. It's, the old saying has been, it's easier to trade down than it is to trade up. So it's really hard to find that person who's got that taste level, etc., in the buying. Not impossible, but finding it from a mass market, something like that, not as easy.
So, when I was researching your background and everything, I saw that you've been a strong advocate for omnichannel retailing. Would love to hear your thoughts on where you see omnichannel, like that approach, evolving for luxury brands, let's say over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yes, thinking about that, it's what's something that's changing these days is, you'll probably notice on your LinkedIn's already, is there's more and more of an ask for a chief customer experience officer. For a while it was, chief of this, chief of that. It's moved now to chief customer experience being the main word these days, experience instead of service. And it's really, I'm seeing more around that, where people are understanding you have to connect all of the pieces. It's all of the areas, whether it's retail, wholesale, e-com, etc. And your marketing, everything about your brand has to be synergized from the start to the finish to the absolute decision maker on this, the end use client. So it's about finding the connections all the way through. So there's more focus on developing, some cases, departments around that. I don't know if that will stay there. It really should be part of your whole organization's innate abilities in any of the departments, in my mind. But I think we're gonna see some start up with the departments again. Just the same as one day we had NFTs and everything, and next day it's a little quieter around that.
Yeah, it's been very quiet lately. You've actually seen there's been some like lawsuits and things coming out, like anything, right? Like something that fails, you see years later, you see lawsuit. That's usually when you see things are really not in a good place, when that starts to come into the fold. But that can change, right? That can still change. Would love to talk some luxury retail strategies with you. So, what are some of the essential elements that luxury brands must focus on to maintain exclusivity, but also expand their digital presence?
Okay, with that, one of the big concerns is always, as we look at this as vendors, etc., is who are we selling to? And that's why so many are going 100% retail at this point with their own organizations. There is a place for wholesale with some, but really, as you look at your own online business as well, who are you selling to? So flashing red lights go off immediately sadly, if it goes to certain countries. So in some cases, for exclusivity, they're blocking countries, and that's their decision and who. But the biggest piece, the easiest to look at, which is something that's being delved into more, is somebody's buying an entire size scale of your product. That's not a good sign that it's just for them. I mean, these are just common sense pieces more than anything. But it's surprising sometimes how many people haven't looked at that, because they're looking at their top line sales and not digging into the data and how am I getting that sale? Who's buying this? Who's our purchaser? And if it's somebody and they've got a size range, or they're buying up every possible bag they can and everything, you know that this is going to the gray market. This is going to just the wrong channels overall. So I think that's a big piece when it comes to the exclusivity.
What are you seeing with, like, obviously online retail has just continued, like, you'd have to go really far to find someone that's not buying most of their stuff online these days, right? But then I go to Boston, where I'm originally from, and I'm in Seaport, and I'm seeing all these new retail, like a lot of luxury brands. I don't know if in Seaport, there's all these luxury, yeah, and I'm seeing all of them pop up all of a sudden. Let's talk about the importance of still having that physical presence. Is it, at that point, is it more for marketing than they expect people are going to go in and buy a bunch of stuff from there at this point, or what are you seeing? Or is it kind of both?
So great question, and it depends on the country partially as well. The United States has been, since the beginning, has been very strong online. First of all, your shipping and freight is far less expensive than some of the other countries, including the exorbitant prices we pay in Canada for it. So US is much more comfortable with that. I can speak to Canada, as we saw this giant surge when COVID happened, of course, and everyone expected it was just going to keep going up because now we're going to be just like the US and hoorah, here we come. And it flattened right out and started to decrease again. Still higher, obviously, than it was before COVID, but nothing like during COVID, because particularly in luxury, people want tactile. They want the service, the entire experience in luxury. And That's probably one of the biggest challenges in luxury right now for anybody, is creating an online experience that can be comparable to, or as close to as possible, comparable to what people are able to do in a store, or coming to your house, or taking you out to the restaurant, all of these pieces. And that's a really big challenge, is how do you impress people with what you're doing online when you can't touch it? You don't have somebody sitting there telling you all about the Cuccinelli dinner in Solomeo or something like this. So, and how they found this particular gem or anything. So that's a big piece of it. And I find in general that hyper personalization that's going to be required as we go forward for this customer, you can't do it quite the same way with the online. So hence you're going to see Seaport happening, Yorkdale Mall here, Bell Harbor, whatever, freestanding stores, and now hospitality on top of that. They want to create a lifestyle brand around it. So now we've got the hotels, the restaurants, the bars, the coffee shops, everything to make you live and breathe your brand.
I'll tell you what I noticed too, specifically in Seaport, is these stores are not as large though as they used to be, which makes sense, right? I mean, the real estate is very expensive there, first off, but it's clear that they still want that presence where if you want to go get something in person, but then also for marketing purposes, right? Like I always end up looking up more stuff when I walk by these stores because I see something. Also, the psychology behind it. I feel like I need to buy something when I go into the store. When I see the people looking at me, it's like, you see like the puppy dog like looking at you, like take me out, like it's that feeling of like don't not say hello to me, do not like not buy something here, and it really usually that psychology stuff doesn't work on me, but I do feel like I'm more likely to buy something when I go into the store than online. I can just look and then go off, and then maybe I don't go back to it.
Well, they say that one of the best purchasers always is a great salesman, because they fall in love with when they see the experience and everything. Oh my God, this is so fantastic. And
Yeah.
they want to be part of it as well. It's, you bring up an interesting point though, Jared, is the marketing piece in many luxury companies is actually the online piece. And a lot of research is done. So the customers are far more savvy, far more knowledgeable walking into the stores normally. And that's why, certainly with luxury, with the sales professionals, and quite frankly, anywhere these days, they need to have an incredible amount of coaching and training and understanding about the product, but not just the product, but the entire story around it. It's so important as part of the romance of the brand. So they will go online, they will check everything out. They will also use their apps to find out what pricing is everywhere else, including, in the case of luxury, other countries, because chances are they can fly someplace else as well. And, if they feel that you're doing them a disservice as far as pricing is not comparable in each of the markets, depending on currency exchange, obviously. But if it's not within line, you're taking a risk with your brand at this point as well. But they'd use that as much for marketing as anything. And then going into the store, they want to try it on. They want the experience. They want the glass of champagne, whatever. And after that, they will probably buy it in the store and maybe have it delivered to the house so that it's more discreet, or they may take it out with them, but less often than not these days, because of the economy, things start to get much more quiet again, as they say.
What are your thoughts? A little bit different, but I did want to ask you this because I'm starting to see where I live now, they're starting to pop up more of like the custom luxury clothes. Like there's a place here where you go in, they'll like give you a glass of something. They actually have like activities you can do. And do you think we'll see that take off where it's still luxury? Because like if you want a suit here, it's a couple $1,000s. It's not like it's, and obviously they must have done their research to say like this market can support that. Let's hope. But I haven't seen many people in there yet, and I hope that changes for them. But what are your thoughts on that? A little bit different, right? Because it's a customization. It comes with higher costs, which is why they're charging what they're charging. Do you think that could become something we see more in these in-person stores, like the customization of luxury?
Already happening. already happening. It's particularly as we look at Gen Z, for example. It's they want something more individualistic. They want to be able to speak to who they are as a person. They want to know everything about the garment that they're selecting or whatever commodity it may be. And that's one piece. The other piece is that top 1%, they're running into each other everywhere at all the same places. They want something where they're going to stand out, or maybe quietly they know they're standing out with something different as well. But it's the customization is certainly trending already. Not necessarily, well, it's trending with the larger brands as well. The key luxury over the top, the Hermes, the Cuccinelli, the LVMH group and everything, they're all looking at different pieces for customization. They all have bespoke product. That's part and parcel. And then you've got these smaller groups that know how to, they're looking at how do I create a space for me where I can be different, because I'm not going to be able to compete necessarily with an Hermes or an LVMH. What makes me different for this customer to stand out? So if they can do customization, probably and hopefully sustainability around that as well. A lot of it becomes around the circular economy and how do I take these different pieces and create something fabulous for my new client.
I think part of it too is you said this early on, and you mentioned like romance and like the story behind everything. So this was something I did want to ask you, is just the importance of storytelling, and specifically, I mean, I think it's even more important for luxury retail than for anything else. But can you share, are there any like particular examples that stand out over your career where you're like, they got the storytelling really right and it had a major impact?
I mean, there's so many over the years. So we could have a book and a movie. But I think one of the best examples of success around that right now, and it's not necessarily my success with it. I love the brand, and I've worked with the brand over the years. Brunello Cuccinelli, where you have this quiet luxury brand that started off years ago as a small cashmere sweater brand, but Brunello Cuccinelli himself is a philosopher, I would say, and he knows what he believes in, and he's constantly thinking and progressing on what does this mean for my customer, but what does this mean for the globe as well. And he's built this incredible romantic brand that's also, he's at the G7 summit or G20 summit, excuse me, standing up there on stage talking with Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates about where the world is coming and what we need to do. You don't get there in fashion that often. So,
Yeah.
but he's been recognized so well because he's done so much from Solomeo is where their offices, factories, showrooms, everything is based. Small town that grew up in. They've been saving the town at the same time. So they talk about renovating the opera house and building this and then taking it for an entire culture of their business where the employees and Brunello and everybody sit down for lunch every day when they're at work, and they have a beautiful, lovely, elegant Italian lunch and head back to it. It's about the Mongolian cashmere. It's about all of these pieces. So there's so many stories, and depending on what the customer wants to know about, or you can create magic with it because he's created magic with it. So that's one perfect example to me of the storytelling where they've got everything from the company culture to Italian culture and people and history and food and wine. They encapsulate all of that in their events as well. And and that's the ticket to try and get when the menswear show for Pitti Uomo happens in Italy for the retailers. That's the one they have to go to no matter what. Same thing with the women's, etc. And then they do the same with their clients, but they do it in such a beautiful, elegant way that the customers are like, I've got to be part of this. I want to be part of not just buying a sweater, but being part of the brand overall.
I love it. I love how excited you get when you're talking about this too. Like you get into it.
I've got a passion for this.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. That's the number one reason I do video and not just like an audio only podcast. Like I want to see you get and you are so everyone go watch this video if you're listening because you get to see Lanita get really excited when she's talking about this stuff and the passion's clear.
Well, if you need a hook to drag me off, you'll let me know.
No, I wanted you to keep going. You're doing great. Last question for you though, as we wrap up here. You mentioned students earlier in the conversation. What advice do you give to students that want to break into luxury retail?
It's tough, but try and be a little patient. So it's be curious, ask lots of questions, find the companies that really impress you, do your homework, find those companies that really impress you, dig deep into who they are, what they're about, and then try and connect with some of those people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if they're the companies that have the kind of culture you're looking for, they're probably going to have somebody there who's going to be interested. There's many programs at the top luxury retailers now, or top luxury brands, I should say, because they're not all retail. But there's many programs now where they have introductions for students. Encourage looking into all of those as well. There's programs at the universities to help with this now as far as retail background, which there wasn't for many years, but we've got, everything from the FITs to you name it, and OCAD, we're on board chair and all the rest. But there's so many opportunities if they can take advantage of it. So it's really about digging, doing their homework, and figuring out what part of the industry you have a passion for. What really gets you excited? Some of them I talk to, and they're all fabulous. I love the students, but some of them go, well, I want to get into the industry. Well, what do you want to do? I don't know. It's anything, and anything's not going to be the answer to be able to connect with any of these people at these places. They want to hear that, here's why you love their company, just like anything else for CVs, etc. But this is why your company really stands out to me. And this is my hope, is I could do something around this. Be prepared to come in as an intern. And there are great internship programs at many of these companies as well. So there's lots of other ideas, but those are key.
I want to share something too, because this is something, I don't know whether you agree or disagree with this, but this has been my take on it. When I was in school, freshman year, I took unpaid internships. And now I hear people say they would never do that because and what's interesting? If you're getting an internship as a freshman or sophomore and it does happen to be unpaid, I don't think people should necessarily be bitter about it, because if I would be bitter if I wasn't taught something valuable and I was doing free work for them during that time. But if it's the right opportunity and they don't even have an internship, don't be afraid to, I'm not saying work 50 hours in an internship, but go see if you can help create an internship of 10 or 15 hours, even if it's unpaid. Because if you're getting that really good use of knowledge that you wouldn't have received if you didn't have that opportunity, I think it's a win, even if you're not getting paid. I just tell people, don't work the 40 hours, 30 hours. If they're not going to pay you, it should be like a 10 or 15 or 20 hours, nothing crazy. But I don't know. I guess my point is, I always say to people, be more open. Now, should they pay you? Yes. But should you not take something if they don't? Depending on the opportunity, I guess, no, I don't know. That's my take.
So you and me differ on that.
Okay. That's okay.
I appreciate the enthusiasm and the passion to want to get in the door someplace. And it used to work that way. You're absolutely right. But in today's world with governance and everything surrounding that, particularly where these companies, many of them are public, and just in general with governance, the right thing is for them to pay an intern. And most of these companies, at least the ones I deal with, insist that, yes, of course, it will be a paid internship. The trick is to get that paid internship. So that's where, whether going through one of the universities, one of the schools, that's an easier way to get in, certainly for that, than it is to just knock on the door. And that's where I'd encourage the education piece for that in particular, because they can help connect you in. Or you work through finding those HR people that are going to be looking, and they often have it on their sites, for whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's on their direct site. I'd look even further, and they'll have positions on there. But in general, I'm finding the culture today is they will pay. But to your point, if you want to get in the door, be open to, if it's a minimum wage position just to get started there or something. I mean, that's how many of us started. And it's a way to get in and see, and if whether you even like the company.
I always told high school students and early college students that you have a certain age where people don't expect that there's another, ulterior motive, like that you're genuinely passionate about what you're doing. Like if someone does that now, right, tries to break through the door, you're always hesitant because like, oh, you want something here. But there is a certain age where if you genuinely reach out to people wanting to help or ask for guidance or advice, that most of us are willing to help, right? Until it gets to a certain point, and then you're like, you want something here, right? So yeah, no, and I'm glad you. Great take, by the way, and that makes I actually, but if I can change my answer, I change to what you said because you convinced me.
We'll allow that.
Yeah, I love it. Jeff Bezos used to always say that. He's like, if like when you really want to see like if someone's able to change their opinion based on hearing something that they like really good facts like you just listed, that is a good sign. You should be doing that more, right? We should be doing that more. So, Lanita, absolute pleasure having you on. I usually don't smile the whole episode, so great job. And look forward to future conversations. Hopefully we can get you on a panel or something sometime with some other folks. I know we could really go into some other topics, but if the stars align, but really appreciate it. And everyone go check this out.
Thanks so much, Jared. It was an absolute pleasure, and I'd love to speak with you again anytime. Take care.